joyful and to do good as long as they live. Also, that everyone should eat and drink and take pleasure in his toil. This is God's gift to man. I perceive that whatever God does endures forever. Nothing can be added to it, nor anything taken from it. God has done it so that people fear before him. That which is already has been. That which is to be already has been. And God seeks what has been driven away. Now, if you remember, as we've been going through Ecclesiastes, we have to keep in our minds what is Solomon's premise. Solomon's premise in this book is that he's trying to discover meaning in life under the sun. The implication is that he's trying to find meaning apart from, if you will, the person and presence of God. Now we know that Solomon comes to the conclusion in chapter 12 that there really is no life or meaning apart from, or no meaning in life apart from God. And we've seen that already in the hints that he's left us along the way. And even in this passage, we see in that second paragraph that Solomon's talking about the person of God and what God has left for man to do. So even in his mind, he has this concept of the providence of God working in the lives of men. And he understands that meaning and true meaning really ultimately comes from God. But he's on this journey. And today we encounter this powerful poem. It's a lot of Hebrew parallelism in these verses 1 through 8, really, that he goes through there, and these contrasts that he gives in this passage. And to me, that just speaks of the whole idea of change and the ebb and flow of life. And you know, when I think about the ebb and flow of life, and I think about the whole concept of change, I don't like change a whole lot sometimes. Now, there's some things we're ready to change, but a lot of times change is painful, and we don't like the process of going through change. And you know, we see that in our lives. I found this little picture to kind of maybe give an example of how we look at change, or what change puts in us anyway. This guy out surfing, he says, you know, it's a short trip from riding the waves of change to being torn apart by the sharks of I can't read that last word. What's that? Defeat. There it is. Gotta make it bigger next time. The shark of defeat. But see, in change, there's always this possibility of failure. And I think that's, and I may be wrong, at least from my perspective, I think that's probably the most scary part of change, is not being able to reach the goal. Maybe you're afraid to fail, or you're afraid of what the process may bring in this concept of change. And, you know, after all, I think we're creatures of habit as human beings. I'm a creature of habit. I like things to go the same way all the time, you know. For instance, I like Alabama to win every Saturday, even though they looked ugly doing it yesterday. But, you know, we like to do things in routine. So change sometimes is difficult for us. And I found this other picture that kind of reminded me of routine. You ever notice, it's always interesting to me when I ride down a field, cows have this just enormous fields to walk in, but inevitably you always see a rut in the field because they walk the same path all the time. Now they may vary off to eat some grass on either side or whatever, but there's always a rut in the cow field because they all follow the same trail. At my house, you know, I got 120 dogs. Not really, I got a lot. Unfortunately. But in our house, I noticed that dogs do the same thing. They walk the same routes every time in that yard, and they'll leave a rut in your grass, if you notice that. And I think we're the same way. Why the roads where they are a lot of times? That's because we got a habit in going that way. Things we needed were that way, so we just made a rut in life. So I think we're resistant sometimes to change. And when change happens to us, you know, especially the bad changes in life, the things we face, we get all frustrated and you know, we get all frightened and discouraged, and we don't know what to do. We don't like it. And we say, God, why me? Why this? Why now? You know, I think Dr. Solomon deals with a lot of that in this passage as we will look at it. And I came up with 5 thoughts that the Lord prompted me with when I was studying this passage. And the first one really comes from the first verse. If you look at that verse, it says, basically, there is an appointed time for every circumstance.